All right, let's move on. So now, based on our introduction earlier about radiation biology, we want to now have a look or have an overview. What are the biological effects that we are going to look at, or what are the main biological effects of ionizing radiation? So now in radiation physics, we studied how the photons or particulate radiation interact with matters. Now we're looking into the effects. Now that the interaction have taken place, what are the effects? What are the biological effects? So the biological effects of ionizing radiation are mainly based on the chemical changes, physical changes, and finally the biological changes. So these changes are depending on various factors. One of those is the dose factor. So the variables that affect dose response are cellular, the cellular tissue, the different type of tissues, the organs, or if it's a radiation effect to the whole body, and so on. So now, radiation in cancer treatment requires ionizing radiation to be targeted to the cancerous tissue, but nevertheless, this ionizing radiation will be received or deposited its energy to the surrounding healthy tissue. So the knowledge gained from radiation biology can be used to develop strategy to minimize the harmful effect of radiation on human health, such as the strategy to improve radiation safety protocols for radiation treatment planning, to develop new radiation therapy techniques, so different fractionation, different kind of dose delivery method, and so on, and also the understanding or knowledge in radiobiology will give you or will give us an understanding on the long-term effects of radiation exposure. So it has basically radiobiology also have an application, it's a specific application in radiation protection. So in cancer treatment planning, who are we protecting? There are two main concerns. One is the patient, and number two is the personnel, the staff. So it has a specific target. Radiobiology basically it enables us to establish safety standards and regulation for workers and public who may be exposed to ionizing radiation at the workplace when they are working in the field of radiation therapy. All right, now the biological effect of radiation in human occurs either somatically or hereditarily. So there are two types of biological effects. Either the effects get into the irradiated individuals, the person itself, so it's called somatic effects, or the descendants of the individual exposed to radiation, and this is called as radiation. I'll get my pen. So you get this is the person itself, and this is the genetic effects or hereditary effects, where the descendants of the person exposed to the radiation were the one who suffered from the biological effects. So what is the somatic effects? Somatic effects refer to the direct biological effects of radiation on the exposed individual. So these effects can occur in tissue or organ of the body, ranging from mild skin burns to acute radiation sickness, or if there's too much of cell death and tissue death, it might cause death to that particular person. So somatic effects are typically non-heritable and do not affect future generation. So it ends at the individual itself. On the other hand, hereditary effects refer to the genetic effects of radiation that is passed from one generation to the next. So these effects occur when radiation damages the DNA in the reproductive cells, leading to mutation that can be transmitted to the offspring of the person who have been exposed to radiation. So hereditary effects are typically not immediately observed as they can take many generations to be manifested. So you might not see it in the first offspring generation. So it could be in the grandchildren, great grandchildren, and so on. So now there are two different types of effects of the somatic and hereditary. So there is deterministic effect and stochastic effect. So somatic effects could either be deterministic or stochastic, but hereditary effect can only be stochastic effect. So what is deterministic effects? So deterministic effects refer to the direct biological effects of radiation that occur above a certain threshold of exposure. So if it gets to the certain threshold, so if you are observing a biological effect, for example, and see, all right, there's no effect, and suddenly there is a reaction, and this point over here is called as the threshold value. So the examples of deterministic effects include skin burns, radiation sickness, cataracts, nauseous, and so on. And the other one is stochastic effects. So stochastic effects refer to the probability of developing cancer or genetic mutation as a result of radiation exposure. So these effects occur at random without a threshold, without a deterministic relationship to the dose received. It could be at this lower end of the exposure dose. So example, this includes cancer, genetic mutations, birth defects, and so on. So, in general, biological effects of radiation in humans can be categorized into somatic and hereditary effect. So, somatic means directly affecting the exposed individuals, and the hereditary effects affecting future generation through genetic changes. So these effects can be further classified as either deterministic or stochastic. Deterministic with a threshold and stochastic at random without any threshold. So understanding these different types of effects is crucial to assess and mitigating risks associated with radiation exposure, which is a concern when we talk about the utilization of ionizing radiation for treatment and imaging, of course. Now, radiation, how does these photons interact at the microscopic level? So, at the microscopic level, incident radiation such as photon particulate, they interact with the orbital electrons at the cellular molecule or the cellular atoms at the cellular level. First, there is a possibility of excitation, and second, there is a possibility of ionization. So excitation occurs when the energy of the radiation is absorbed by an atom or molecule, causing one or more electrons to move to a higher level but still contained within the atom. It does not leave the atom. It just goes to the higher energy level. So this excited, now the atom is termed as excited. So the excited atom may subsequently emit radiation as it returns to its original lower energy state, and this process does not result in the formation of charged particles. So it does not produce positive ion and negative charge ion due to the excitation process. Next, you have ionization. So what is ionization? Ionization occurs when the energy of the radiation is high enough to remove one or more electrons from the atom or the molecule, so resulting in the formation of ions or charged particles, positive and negative. So this can lead to the formation of positively charged ions if electrons are removed, and negatively charged ions if the electrons are subsequently added. So these charged particles may interact with other nearby molecules or atoms in the surrounding environment, leading to chemical changes and further develop into biological damage. In If we look at this in terms of implication, excitation does not result in the formation of charged particles, but instead leaves the atom or molecule in an excited state. That's it. Ionization, on the other hand, it leads to the formation of charged particles and may interact with other molecules or atoms and causing further chemical and biological damage. So basically, microscopic interactions of radiation with at the cellular level involve number one, it begins with the absorption of energy by atoms and molecules, leading to either excitation or ionization, resulting in ionization resulting in the formation of charged particles, positive and negative ions. Next. Um, in radiation-induced damage to biological targets, it can be resulted or caused either by direct action or indirect action. So, what are the differences between the direct and indirect action? Direct action is number one, predominant with high LET radiation such as alpha particles and neutron. Direct action involves the ionizing particles or excitation of or ionization of particles or excitation of particles of the direct action involves ionization or excitation within the biological target, leading to the series of events resulted in further manifestation of microscopic damage. Indirect is predominantly occurred by or occurred due to the presence of low LET radiation such as X-rays and gamma rays. Indirect action involves the ionization or excitation of surrounding water molecule in the surrounding environment, creating free radicals, and these free radicals are the one that attacking the biological structure. In this case we have DNA strand, so these free radicals are the one attacking it, in comparison to direct action where the alpha particle, let's say we have alpha, it directly interact with the DNA strand. So now in normal oxygenated mammalian cell, direct effects account for about 1/3 of the total radiation damage, meaning most of the damage would be caused by indirect action. By that means that the photons or ionizing radiation first interact with water molecules surrounding or nearby the biological target area. So for low LET radiations like photons, the indirect action is the main cause of radiation damage. So that is just in a comparison. In normally oxygenated mammalian cell, the 1/3 caused by direct, 2/3 caused by indirect. But for very low LET radiation, indirect is the main cause of radiation damage. So if we look into direct ionization, it occurs when the ionizing radiation interacts directly with the biological molecule, causing the either excitation or ejection, or we called it as ionization of an electron. So this is more likely to occur with high energy radiation such as alpha. Remember when I said earlier in part 1, where alpha particles, the energy is in the range of MeV. That is direct ionization. Indirect ionization or excitation occurs when the ionizing radiation interacts with water molecules in the surrounding environment, producing highly reactive free radicals such as hydroxyl radicals and so on. So these free radicals can then diffuse and react with biological molecules such as DNA, and it could cause single strand break, double strand breaks, it could modify the DNA base and so on. So this process is more likely to occur with gamma or X-ray, which have low LT and deposit its energy over a slightly thicker or deeper distance from the surface. So in short, what I was trying to say is radiation-induced biological damage can occur either both through direct or indirect mechanism. Direct action predominates at high LT radiation, while indirect action is the main cause for low LT radiation. So this is important for us to assess radiation risk associated with all the planning that is done for the patient. All right, so now let's have a little bit of revision. Now, what is tissue, what is organ, and what is a system? So, tissue is basically a group of cells that work together to perform a specific function in the body. So, for example, examples of tissues are muscle tissue, nervous tissue, fatty adipose tissue, and so on. Organ composed of different types of tissues that work together to perform specific function. Examples of organs include heart, lung, liver, spleen, and so on. Next, you have organ system, a group of organs that work together to perform a specific function or a set of function in the body. What are the examples of organs? You have digestive system, respiratory system, nervous system, and so on. Then finally, you have organism, refers to a single individual living beings such as human, animal, or plant, made up of various organ systems that work together to sustain life. So the hierarchy of this biological organization is important if we want to look at radiation-induced damage at the uh, on biological tissue. So tissues basically are groups of cells that work together to perform a specific function, while organs are composed of different types of tissues that work together to perform specific function. Organ systems are groups of organs that work together to perform specific function. An organism is it made up of various organ system. So this could be very beneficial when we are looking into the effect of radiation either to cells, to tissue, organs, organ system, and organism. All right, so what is in cells? Inorganic cells contain inorganic compound and organic compound. In the organic compounds, you have water and minerals. Next, you have the organic compounds. In the organic compounds, you have proteins, carbohydrates, nucleic acid, and lipids, fat. So these two main constituents of cells are made of cytoplasm, where it supports all the metabolic function within a cell, and the brain of the cell or the nucleus, it contains where the genetic information of that particular cells. So human cells are either categorized or as somatic cells or germ cells. Germ cells can be further divided into either it's a sperm or egg cells for female. So all other human cells fall under the category of somatic cells. So cells propagate through division. So cells divide. So somatic cells undergo division through a process called mitosis, which results in the formations of two genetically identical daughter cells. And germ cells, on the other hand, undergo division through a process called meiosis, which involves two fissions of the nucleus. So why this is important? Because at different phase level, the sensitivity to radiation were found to be different. So it is important to understand the different phases of cell cycle. So these are the types of cell division, mitosis or meiosis. In mitosis, important for organism growth and replacement of lost cells, or else if you get a cut, it never can be repaired. So new cells arise from a parent cell through mitosis, and parent cell gives rise to two identical daughter cells. So this is important or crucial for growth and development of multicellular organism. So it is also important to replace lost cells in organism. Next, you have meiosis. It takes place in the reproductive system for production of gametes and the production of germ cells. This is done through division called meiosis. Next, we have chromosomes. So basically what chromosomes are, the thread-like structures in cells that carry genetic information. They contain genes, which is basically the units of hereditary. Each species has a characteristic number of chromosomes. So humans have 23 pairs of chromosomes. 22 pairs are non-sex chromosome, with one pair is a sex chromosome. So genes basically occupy specific positions on chromosomes. So these genes determine specific traits and characteristics. Chromosomes are passed from parents to offspring during reproduction. So changes in chromosome and genes, especially when we talk about radiation-induced changes, can lead to the genetic or hereditary disorder to the offspring. Well, I just want to let you know this is basically the introduction. So this is the introductory to everything that will be covered in this paper, radiobiology and radiation chemistry. So in radiobiology, radiation protection, in radiobiology and radiation protection, LET is used to define the quality of an ionizing radiation beam. LET refers to the amount of energy deposited by ionizing radiation per unit length of the path of the radiation as it passes through matter. So radiation with high LET, for example, neutrons, alpha, it deposits its energy densely along their path, leading to a severe biological effects. The stopping power is a term that refers to the ability of a material to slow down or stop the passage of charged particles such as ions or electrons as they travel through it. So stopping power can vary depending on the type of particles and the material it is passing through. All right, so this is the LET values, the typical LET values for commonly used radiation. So you have 20 kilovolt peak X-rays, cobalt 60, 3 MeV X-rays, 1 MeV electrons. So the LET varies from high to low. And you would see here neutron, every charged particle or alpha have significantly high LET. So different radiation have different LET value, which are important in understanding their biological effects in radiation applications. So now when cells, things that we have cells, and when these cells have been exposed to radiation, two main things or main events would occur. First, you would have the physical effect between radiation and the atoms, mean that it allows energy deposition and absorption. Next, it proceeds to the chemical and biological damage. So the physical effects, the initial interaction involves the ionization or excitation of atoms and molecules within the cells. This interaction can lead to the formation of free radicals and other reactive species. Next, you have biological damage. The biological damage occurs a bit later. It will occur not on the day, maybe it could take about few weeks before it is manifested. So the biological effects of radiation result mainly from damage to the DNA. So however, there are also other sites within the cells when damaged, it may lead to the cell death itself. So the extent of damage can range from temporary disruption to a permanent damage. And these specifically depending on the type and dose of the radiation and the specific biological process. All right. The okay. I'll stop here and then I'll continue the rest of the slide in the following part.